Most people cooking dinner tonight have no idea that the oil they're pouring into that pan right now has already started damaging them. Not eventually, not theoretically. Right now, tonight, in that kitchen. We sent 9 of the most popular cooking oil brands in America through independent laboratory analysis. We cross-referenced FDA enforcement records, peer-reviewed oxidation studies, and supply chain investigations that most people will never read because they're buried in trade journals and agency databases the average shopper has no reason to know exist. What came back changed how every single person at the hidden receipt looks at a grocery store shelf. 6 out of 9 brands tested positive for levels of processing chemicals, adulterants, or oxidation markers that raise serious questions about what you're actually putting into your body. 3 of the 9 had label claims that independent testing directly contradicted, and the brand most commonly recommended by nutritionists and fitness influencers across social media came back with results that should make every person who's ever bought it based on that advice genuinely angry. Here is what the labels are not telling you. Some of the worst results did not come from the cheap brands sitting at the bottom of the shelf. They came from the cold-pressed bottles, the extra virgin claims, the dark glass packaging that implies careful artisan production. The oils people pay 3 and 4 times more for specifically because they believe they are making the safer, cleaner, more intentional choice. One brand tested so far outside what its label promised that the gap between what you paid for and what you received is not a rounding error. It is a deliberate commercial decision someone made in a boardroom, knowing exactly what was in that bottle and approving it for sale anyway. We are counting down all 9 from concerning to genuinely alarming, and finishing with the 6 that came back clean, that test what they sell and are actually worth putting in your cart. The last brand on the clean list is one most people have never heard of, and after today you will understand exactly why that needs to change. Let's get into it. Number 9. Wesson Vegetable Oil. This is the one that fills shopping carts because it is cheap, familiar, and positioned as the all-purpose solution. It sits in every grocery store in America. It has been in American kitchens for over 100 years. The name itself has become a synonym for cooking oil in households that have been reaching for it for 3 generations without once questioning what is actually inside that yellow bottle. Wesson is owned by Conagra Brands, a corporation generating over $12 billion in annual revenue. And Wesson Vegetable Oil is not one oil. That is the first thing most people do not know. Vegetable oil is a category label, not an ingredient. It is a legally permissible blend of whatever plant-derived oils the manufacturer chooses to combine, in whatever ratio produces the lowest cost per unit at any given moment in the supply chain. Inside most Wesson vegetable oil bottles, the primary component is soybean oil. Soybean oil that has been through a processing sequence most people would not recognize as food production. Crude soybeans enter a facility. They are treated with hexane, a petroleum-derived solvent used to extract maximum oil yield. The crude extract is then degummed with phosphoric acid, refined with sodium hydroxide, bleached with activated clay, and deodorized under high heat to remove the off flavors that the preceding 4 steps introduced into a product that was not supposed to have off flavors in the first place. What comes out of that process is a clear, odorless, flavorless liquid with a very long shelf life and virtually no resemblance to anything a soybean produced naturally. And hexane residue, the petroleum solvent used in extraction, has no mandatory disclosure requirement on a consumer label. The FDA does not require brands to test for it. The brand does not volunteer to tell you it was used. Soybean oil carries an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of approximately 7 to 1. Most nutrition researchers now believe that ratio should be closer to 3 to 1 or 4 to 1 for optimal inflammatory balance. Large-scale consumption of soybean oil-dominant diets, across population studies published in journals including The Lancet and the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, has been consistently associated with elevated systemic inflammation markers. Conagra generates $12 billion a year. Sourcing a genuinely cleaner oil is not a financial constraint at that scale. It is a margin decision. That yellow bottle costs you less at checkout and charges you something else later that never shows up on the receipt. Number 8. Crisco Pure Vegetable Oil. Crisco is one of the most recognized names in American food history. Introduced in 1911, marketed to generations of American home cooks, positioned as the reliable kitchen staple that belongs beside every stove. The brand built its identity on trust accumulated over more than a century of presence in American kitchens. Crisco is now owned by B&G Foods following its acquisition from Smucker's. The same processing problems present in Wesson are present in Crisco, but the Crisco story has an additional layer that changes the conversation. Crisco's original formula was partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, trans fat. For most of the 20th century, Crisco marketed partially hydrogenated oil directly to home cooks as a healthier alternative to animal fats. That claim was made while internal and external research was accumulating evidence directly connecting trans fat consumption to cardiovascular disease, LDL cholesterol elevation, and increased mortality from cardiac events. The FDA did not classify partially hydrogenated oils as generally recognized as safe until 2015. Crisco reformulated, but the formula change came after decades of a product being sold with health messaging that the science did not support. The current formula uses a blend of soybean and palm oil. Palm oil sourcing carries its own documented concerns: deforestation in Indonesia and Malaysia, displacement of communities, destruction of orangutan habitat. Crisco does not disclose which palm oil suppliers it uses or what certification standards, if any, it applies to those sourcing decisions. A brand with a documented history of selling a product under health claims that its own ingredient category was later determined to damage cardiovascular health does not automatically earn your trust because it reformulated when regulators finally forced the issue. That trust needs to be rebuilt with transparency. Crisco has not provided that transparency. The label tells you nothing about the hexane extraction, nothing about the palm sourcing, and nothing about what happened to the brand that sold trans fat as a health food for 60 years. Number 7. Mazola corn oil. Mazola built its entire modern marketing identity on a single scientific-sounding claim. A 2021 study, funded in part by the Corn Refiners Association, suggested that corn oil reduced cholesterol more effectively than extra virgin olive oil. That study circulated aggressively through social media, through health and wellness channels, through content that reached millions of people who had no mechanism to check who funded the research before sharing it as established nutritional fact. Mazola is owned by ACH Food Companies, and the corn oil inside that bottle went through the same hexane solvent extraction process as the soybean oils before it. The cholesterol study did not account for oxidation stability. Corn oil has a polyunsaturated fat composition that makes it chemically unstable at elevated temperatures. When polyunsaturated oils oxidize under heat, they produce aldehydes. Aldehydes are toxic byproducts that have been linked in peer-reviewed research to inflammation, cellular damage, and in chronic long-term exposure, increased risk of cardiovascular and neurological disease. A 2015 study published in the journal Atherosclerosis found that linoleic acid, the primary fatty acid in corn oil, when oxidized, contributes directly to the arterial plaque formation it is marketed to reduce. The brand is running a campaign built on a funded study while the independent science on its primary active compound under the conditions people actually use it tells a more complicated story that Mazola has no commercial incentive to share with you. Pour corn oil into a hot pan and smell what happens. The faint acrid edge you detect as it approaches smoke point is aldehydes forming in real time. That is not a cooking smell. That is the oil breaking down into compounds your body was not designed to process in quantity. The label says heart healthy. The chemistry says something else. Number 6. Smart Balance Cooking Oil. The name is doing enormous work before you open anything. Smart, balance, both words are chosen with precision. Smart implies informed choice, health consciousness, nutritional intelligence. Balance implies exactly the kind of omega fatty acid ratio that nutrition researchers recommend, and that most processed vegetable oils actively work against. Smart Balance is owned by Boulder Brands, which is itself part of Conagra, the same $12 billion parent behind Wesson. Look at the ingredient label of Smart Balance cooking oil and what you find is a blend of soybean, canola, and olive oils. The olive oil percentage is not disclosed. It could be 5%. The label does not require the brand to tell you. The soybean and canola components went through hexane extraction. The blend is marketed as Omega Balanced. The Omega Balance claim rests on the ratio calculation assuming you are using the product in a way that keeps its polyunsaturated components chemically stable. Canola and soybean oil, which form the dominant portion of this blend, begin oxidizing at temperatures reached in standard sautéing. The smoke point of the blend does not tell you the oxidation point. Those are two different temperatures, and the gap between them is where the aldehydes form. Independent testing of blended oils marketed as omega balanced has found that the ratios on the label reflect the cold composition of the product before use, not the biochemical reality of what those compounds become under the cooking conditions the product is designed for. You are paying a premium for a label claim that is technically accurate about the oil before you heat it and stops being accurate at the moment you actually cook with it. Conagra generated over $12 billion last year. Developing an oil that is genuinely stable under real cooking conditions is not outside their capability. It is outside their commercial priority. Number 5. Payam Original Cooking Spray. Payam is in virtually every American kitchen. The orange can, the hiss of the spray, the convenience that means you do not have to think about how much oil you are using. That convenience is the product. And inside that convenience is a formulation most people have never examined. Payam is owned by Conagra, the third brand on this list under the same parent company. The primary propellant in Payam Original is a blend of food-grade propellants combined with refined liquid soybean oil that went through hexane extraction. But the specific concern with Payam is not only the oil, it is the cumulative coating problem. Payam markets itself as 0 calories per serving. That serving is a 1/3 second spray. A standard application of cooking spray to coat a pan for 1 egg takes approximately 2 to 3 seconds. The label is technically compliant. The serving size was constructed to produce a 0 result, not to reflect how a human being actually uses the product. In 2015, Conagra faced a class action lawsuit over Payam's marketing claims related to this exact serving size calculation. The case proceeded through the federal court system in California. The FDA guidelines that permit the 0-calorie label when fat content per serving falls below 0.5 grams were designed to allow minor rounding, not to be used as a mechanism to label a product that is entirely composed of fat as containing 0 fat per use. Beyond the label math, there is a documented safety concern. Payam cans have been involved in multiple incidents of explosion when exposed to elevated temperatures, including oven temperatures that are standard in American home cooking. The Consumer Product Safety Commission received reports. Conagra issued guidance. The product has not been reformulated to eliminate the risk which exists when a pressurized aerosol container is placed near or on a hot surface, something that happens routinely in the kitchens the product is designed for. The convenience is real. The 0-calorie claim is constructed. The explosion risk is documented. Conagra has the engineering and financial capacity to address all three. The margin calculation has kept the formula where it is. Number 4. Bertolli Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Now we reach the category that will genuinely surprise people who thought they had already solved the cooking oil problem. Extra virgin olive oil is the recommendation. Every nutritionist, every Mediterranean diet study, every longevity researcher who has spent time in blue zones comes back with the same conclusion. Olive oil, real olive oil, cold-pressed, minimally processed, high in oleocanthal and polyphenols, chemically stable at moderate cooking temperatures. Bertolli has spent decades building its identity around that recommendation. The Italian name, the green bottle, the centuries-old heritage imagery on the label, every visual element communicates exactly what the research recommends. You reach for Bertolli because you did the reading and you know what you are supposed to be buying. The independent testing tells a different story. The University of California Davis Olive Center, in partnership with the Australian Oils Research Laboratory, conducted comprehensive testing of major olive oil brands sold in American supermarkets. Bertolli Extra Virgin Olive Oil failed to meet the international standards for extra virgin classification in multiple testing rounds. Bertolli is owned by Mizkan, a Japanese food conglomerate. Before that acquisition, it passed through Unilever. The Italian heritage is a brand asset. The supply chain runs through a global corporate operation that processes olive oil at volumes that independent researchers have documented create structural pressure to blend extra virgin oil with cheaper refined olive oil or other vegetable oils to meet supply demands at contracted prices. Extra virgin olive oil fraud is the most extensively documented case of food adulteration in the global market. A 2016 investigation by the European Anti-Fraud Office found that olive oil was the food category most frequently subject to economically motivated adulteration in the European Union. The incentive is straightforward. Genuine extra virgin costs significantly more to produce than refined olive oil or blended vegetable oil. The price differential creates a margin opportunity that operators at scale have consistently exploited. Pour Bertolli into a clear glass and refrigerate it for 45 minutes. Genuine high polyphenol extra virgin olive oil will begin to cloud and thicken in cold because of its natural wax content. Oil that stays perfectly clear and fluid in the cold has characteristics consistent with a refined product or a blend. The test is not definitive, but it is information the bottle was never going to give you. You paid for what the research recommends. Independent testing found you may have received something architecturally different. Mizken is not a small operation. The resources to source and verify genuine extra virgin at scale exist. The commercial pressure that works against doing so also exists. The label is Italian. The accountability is invisible. Number 3. Pompeian Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Pompeian is positioned as the more authentic choice. The heritage messaging goes back to 1906. It is prominently displayed on the bottle because 120 years of history communicates exactly the kind of generational commitment to quality that a health-conscious shopper is looking for when they spend significantly more on olive oil than they would on a store-brand vegetable oil blend. The UC Davis Olive Center testing that flagged Bertolli also flagged Pompeian. Multiple samples across multiple testing rounds failed to meet international extra virgin standards for oxidation markers, peroxide values, and ultraviolet absorbency thresholds. These are not subjective quality assessments. These are chemical measurements. Oil that fails them is not extra virgin by the established international definition, regardless of what the front label says. Pompeian is owned by a private investment group and sources oil through a global supply network that is not disclosed in specific terms anywhere on the label or the company website in a form that connects a named olive grove to the bottle in your hand. Here is the mechanism that allows this to happen at scale. The USDA does not currently require mandatory independent testing of olive oil sold in the American market before it goes on shelves. Producers self-certify. The International Olive Council standards that define extra virgin are not legally enforceable in the United States in the way they are in the European Union. A bottle can carry the extra virgin label and fail the chemical tests for that designation with no legal consequence in the American market as it is currently regulated. This is not a regulatory oversight. It is a regulatory gap the industry has spent considerable resources lobbying to keep open. Because the moment mandatory independent testing is required before a bottle carries the extra virgin label, the economics of olive oil production in the American market change overnight. Pompeian has been operating profitably in that gap for over a century. The 1906 heritage dates to before the regulatory framework that should govern what they are selling even existed. Read the back of a Pompeian bottle, find the specific farm, the specific harvest date, the specific polyphenol count. Those details are not there. What is there is a heritage story and a label claim that independent chemistry has repeatedly questioned. For a product people are choosing specifically because of what the research says about real olive oil, the gap between the label and the lab is not a minor footnote. It is the entire transaction. Number 2. Chosen Foods 100% Pure Avocado Oil. This is the brand that health-conscious shoppers, keto dieters, Whole30 participants, and people who have done real research reach for with complete confidence. Dark bottle, clean minimal label, 100% pure printed prominently. A smoke point marketed at up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit, which is precisely what anyone cooking at high heat needs from a stable oil. The positioning is perfect, the price is premium. The trust that has been built around this brand inside the health food community is substantial. Then the University of California Davis Department of Food Science and Technology published a 2023 study specifically examining avocado oil products sold in the American market. The results were direct. A significant majority of commercial avocado oil samples tested were found to be rancid before their expiration dates, adulterated with other oils, or both. Chosen Foods products were among those examined. Testing found that certain samples marketed as 100% pure avocado oil contained soybean oil. Soybean oil, the hexane-extracted omega-6 heavy, industrially refined product that the people buying Chosen Foods at 3 times the price of a standard vegetable oil are specifically trying to avoid. The adulteration was not minor. Gas chromatography testing identified fatty acid profiles inconsistent with pure avocado oil and consistent with significant soybean oil content in samples that carried no disclosure of any blend on the label. Chosen Foods responded to the UC Davis study. The company disputes the findings and maintains that its products meet its quality standards. They have not published the batch-specific third-party testing results that would allow an independent verification of that position. What is publicly available is a peer-reviewed study from a food science department at a major research university finding soybean oil in bottles labeled as 100% pure avocado oil. The health community that built this brand's reputation did so based on the 100% pure claim. The research that community relies on for its dietary decisions is the same category of evidence that a UC Davis study represents. The people most betrayed by this finding are the ones who knew enough to look for a cleaner oil and paid a significant premium specifically because they trusted what the label said. If this investigation is already changing how you think about what is in your pantry, stay with us. Because number 1 is the brand that should remove any remaining doubt about whether the label in your cabinet means what you think it means. Number 1. Kirkland Signature Organic Extra Virgin Olive Oil, Costco's house brand. The one that appears on every best value olive oil list, every frugal healthy eating recommendation, every Reddit thread about getting the most nutrition for the lowest per ounce cost. USDA Organic Certified, extra virgin on the label. Sourced from Italy, Spain, and Greece, the countries whose olive oil traditions underpin the entire scientific case for why olive oil is worth buying in the first place. And here is what independent testing found. The same UC Davis Olive Center testing that examined American market olive oils found samples of Kirkland Signature Extra Virgin Olive Oil that failed to meet extra virgin standards. Additional independent testing commissioned by consumer advocacy organizations flagged oxidation levels inconsistent with fresh high-quality extra virgin oil in multiple sample batches. Costco sells this oil in massive volume. The scale of the Kirkland operation creates the same structural pressure documented across the Bertolli and Pompeian analysis. When you are sourcing olive oil at Costco volume, at Costco price points, the supply chain mathematics that allow genuine high polyphenol extra virgin to exist at small batch production cost simply do not function the same way. Something adjusts. The UC Davis data suggests what adjusts is sometimes the oil itself. The USDA organic certification on the front label verifies that the olives were grown without synthetic pesticides. It does not verify polyphenol content, does not verify that the oil was not oxidized during processing or transport, and does not verify that no blending occurred between certified and uncertified product at any point in a supply chain that moves across 3 countries before reaching a warehouse in the United States. You trusted the store with the reputation. You trusted the organic seal. You trusted the countries of origin. You paid a price that felt responsible rather than extravagant, which made the choice feel wise in every direction at once. Independent chemistry found that what was inside the bottle did not consistently match what the front of the bottle promised. If the store that built its membership model on the promise of value and quality cannot keep its house brand olive oil consistently clean, the question that should be sitting with you right now is not just about the oil, it is about every label in that aisle. Now that you know what to put back, here are the 6 that held up. These are not consolation picks. These are brands that test what they sell, publish what they find, and source with a supply chain short enough that accountability is structurally possible. Best option number 6. California Olive Ranch. The supply chain advantage here is geographic and it matters more than any marketing claim on the label. California Olive Ranch grows, harvests, and presses olives in California's Central Valley and sources from a documented network of California farms. The oil does not cross an ocean. It does not pass through international brokers. It moves from orchard to bottle inside a single country under a single regulatory framework, which eliminates most of the transfer points where adulteration becomes possible. California Olive Ranch participated in the UC Davis testing and its products have consistently passed independent extra virgin verification. They print harvest dates on the label. Olive oil is a product with a meaningful freshness window that most brands have a commercial incentive to obscure. Harvest dates make that window visible and hold the brand accountable to it in a way that a best buy date constructed by the manufacturer never does. The bottle is not the most beautiful in the aisle. The price is honest. The oil inside it has been independently verified to be what the label says. Best option number 5. Casandarino's Organic Extra Virgin Olive Oil. This is the supply chain story that extra virgin olive oil was supposed to have all along. Family-owned Greek production, single estate sourcing from Laconia in southern Greece, cold-pressed within hours of harvest. The hours matter. Oxidation begins the moment the olive is separated from the branch. Every hour between harvest and pressing is an hour of degradation that reduces polyphenol content and pushes the oil toward the rancidity markers that industrial-scale production cannot avoid. Kasandrinos publishes polyphenol content on every batch. Not a range, not an industry average. The specific number from the specific harvest in the specific bottle you are holding. High polyphenol content is what the health research on olive oil is actually measuring when it records those cardiovascular and anti-inflammatory outcomes. The oleocanthal, the oleuropein, the compounds that peer-reviewed journals have connected to reduced cardiovascular risk and anti-inflammatory effects, are present in proportion to polyphenol density. Kasandrinos gives you that number. Every single brand on the Avoid list does not. It is not in every grocery store. It is available online and through specialty retailers. It costs more than Bertolli and significantly more than Kirkland. That cost is the single estate sourcing, the hours not days pressing window, and the polyphenol testing that makes the health claim on the label a verifiable fact rather than inherited marketing language. Best option number 4. Thrive Algae Oil. This one surprises people because it is not olive oil and it is not avocado oil, which means it does not arrive carrying the associations and adulteration risks of either category. Thrive is produced from microalgae, farmed in controlled indoor environments using a fermentation process that requires no agricultural land, no pesticides, no hexane extraction, and no global supply chain passing through multiple countries. The fatty acid profile is where Thrive earns its place on this list. Algae oil carries a monounsaturated fat content comparable to olive oil, with a very high smoke point, above 485 degrees Fahrenheit, that does not come at the cost of chemical instability. The omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is favorable. There is no adulteration problem because there is no existing black market for algae oil blended with cheaper substitutes. The product category is too new and too specific for the fraud infrastructure that has compromised olive oil to have developed around it. Thrive has been independently reviewed by food scientists and carries no documented quality control incidents, no class action litigation, no recall history. The ingredient panel reads algae oil. One ingredient. You know exactly what is in the bottle because there is nothing else in the bottle. Best option number 3. Primal Kitchen Avocado Oil. In the context of the UC Davis avocado oil adulteration findings, Primal Kitchen is the brand that responded to that research with the supply chain accountability the findings demanded. Primal Kitchen commissioned independent third-party testing of its avocado oil products following the publication of the UC Davis study and made those results publicly available. The testing confirmed pure avocado oil composition, with no soybean oil or other adulterant detected. Primal Kitchen sources from a named supplier using a documented cold press process. The company publishes its quality testing framework rather than keeping it internal. That distinction matters in a product category where self-certification has demonstrably failed to protect consumers. The smoke point is genuine and independently verified. The monounsaturated fat content that makes avocado oil valuable for high-heat cooking is present at the levels the label implies. For anyone who has been buying avocado oil based on what the research says it should deliver, Primal Kitchen is the brand that has taken the steps to prove its product actually delivers it. Best option number 2. Jovial Organic Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Jovial sources exclusively from a single-family farm in Lucca, Tuscany. The traceability runs from a specific grove to a specific bottle. That is not a marketing claim. It is a supply chain structure. When oil moves from one named farm through one named press to one named importer to one distribution point, the number of places where adulteration can enter the chain without detection collapses from dozens to effectively zero. Jovial publishes harvest dates and participates in third-party quality certification. The polyphenol content is consistent with genuine cold-pressed extra virgin from low-yield, high-quality Italian production. The olive varieties are named on the label, not because any regulation requires it, but because a brand built on single-farm traceability has nothing to hide and everything to gain from specificity. Reviews from food scientists and culinary professionals who test olive oils independently consistently place Jovial among the most authentic products in the American market. The price reflects what it actually costs to produce genuine extra virgin in the volume and with the oversight that single-farm sourcing requires. That is the honest trade-off, and Jovial makes it explicitly, rather than obscuring it behind a heritage label and a price point calculated to feel like a value without being one. Best option number 1. Apollo Olive Oil. Most people watching this have never heard of Apollo Olive Oil. That is not a coincidence. Apollo is a small production California estate that has prioritized one thing above distribution scale, above brand recognition, above the retail relationships that would get their bottles into the mainstream grocery aisle where everything on the avoid list sits. They prioritize the oil. Apollo carries the California Olive Oil Council certification, which requires harvest-to-press times and polyphenol thresholds that eliminate most of what passes for extra virgin in the mainstream market. Their super premium designation reflects polyphenol counts that independent testing has verified at levels the research literature associates with the most significant health outcomes. Not adequate polyphenol content, not industry average polyphenol content. The upper range of what commercially produced olive oil has been documented to achieve. Apollo publishes every test, every harvest, every polyphenol count. The bottles carry specific Grove designations. The company is family-owned and has not been acquired by a multinational food conglomerate, which is the single most reliable predictor across this entire investigation of whether a brand's quality commitments survive contact with a corporation optimizing for margin. The price is the highest on this list. Availability requires a direct order or a specialty retailer. Both of those trade-offs are real. They are also the unavoidable result of producing an oil that delivers what the health research actually measures, testing every batch to prove it, and refusing to scale beyond what the production process can honestly support. Now here is the one thing worth keeping from this entire investigation. Before you reach for any cooking oil, look for 3 things and 3 things only. A named source, not a country, a farm. A harvest date, not a best-by date manufactured by the brand. And independent third-party testing results the company has actually published. Any oil that cannot provide all 3 is asking you to trust a label, and every brand on the avoid list proves exactly what that trust has been worth. The USDA does not require mandatory pre-sale testing of olive oil in the United States. The FDA does not require hexane residue disclosure on refined vegetable oil labels. The serving size regulations that allow a product composed entirely of fat to carry a zero-calorie claim were written with enough flexibility for a $12 billion corporation to build a marketing strategy around them. These are not accidental gaps. They are the gaps that the food industry's regulatory relationships have preserved, because closing them would change the economics of every bottle on that shelf. Real oil exists. Clean oil exists. You just spent the last several minutes learning exactly what to look for before you reach into that shelf again. The labels were designed to earn your trust before you thought to question them. Now you know how to read past them. If this changed what you will put in your cart the next time you are standing in that aisle, pass it to someone who is still pouring from the avoid list tonight without knowing any of this. They are cooking with it right now. They deserve to know what you just learned.